If you spend a lot of time in the internet book space, be that Goodreads, Book Talk, BookTube, whatever, obviously you're going to encounter Brandon Sanderson's The Cosmere. And if you encounter Brandon Sanderson's The Cosmere, naturally you're going to encounter either people asking the question or people making videos on the question, what order should I even read The Cosmere in? And that's what I want to talk about today, because I think the Cosmere reading orders doesn't matter. So I've seen multiple videos of people telling you what order you have to read the Cosmere in. Is it, chronological order, publication order? Do you read it in order of like concepts that are introduced? And I'm here to tell you, I've read the Cosmere in a certain order, and my friends have all read the Cosmere in a different order, and we have all had a totally fine experience. You can start any Cosmere series from the beginning, or you could read any Cosmere standalone, and you'll be fine. It doesn't matter. You can read Mistborn Era 2 before you read Stormlight Archive. It's okay. You can read Tress of the Emerald Sea before you read Elantris. That's okay. That's fine. And let me explain why. So look, if you're someone who hasn't read the Cosmere and you came to this video looking for what to start, you can start with literally the first book in any of the series or any of the standalones, and then you can just go from there. And here's what's crazy. Read whatever sounds interesting to you. Don't listen to what anybody else says. Pick the Cosmere book that sounds interesting to you, and as long as it's the beginning of a series or a standalone, you will be totally fine. Will you understand everything and every reference in it? No. But here's what's crazy about this. You won't know that you are missing references the first time you read through your first Cosmere books. So trust me when I tell you that by and large, you're going to pick up a book and you're going to read it, and it's basically going to be totally normal to you. And maybe once or twice, something weird will come up, and maybe that's a Cosmere reference, or maybe it's something in that standalone series that hasn't been explained yet. You're probably going to forget about it in like 2 chapters, and later on, you'll finally, if you've read the entire Cosmere, you'll contextualize that bit and you realize, oh, hey, that weird thing forever ago, oh, that was from this book. Oh, that's kind of cool. The only thing that changes in your reading order is it changes at what point you will make certain connections and you will learn certain information. But there is no order that you have to learn any of this information in. Now that the new people are gone, I would like, if any Cosmere readers, right, have found this video who have read all of it, are now yelling at me, right? I mean, they'd have to find the video to yell at me there. If they found this video and they're yelling at me about, no, that's not true because this, and this. All right, now this next part of the video is going to be for you, people who have read the Cosmere. Let's get into spoilers, okay? All right, so first to establish my argument, let me explain to you my reading order. I started with the Mistborn trilogy. I read all 3 Mistborn books, and then I started with the Stormlight Archive. I read the Wave Kings, and then after the Wave Kings, I alternated between a Stormlight book and a Mistborn Era 2 book. So I did the Wave Kings, and then the Alloy of Law, and then I did Words of Radiance and Shadows of Self. I did it like that. Then I read Secret History, I think at the end. And then after that, what did I read? Then after that, I started doing the standalone. So I started doing Warbreaker and Elantris, all right? And then from there, we had the secret projects, okay? And that's, I've basically caught up and that's where we're going. So then, Lost Metal. My friends' reading order are completely different. So one of my friends read the entirety of Mistborn Era 1, and then he read the entirety of Mistborn Era 2, and then he read the entirety of Stormlight Archive. And now he's reading through some of the standalones and some of the other stuff, right? The short stories and things. Okay. And now I have a third friend. So he has read the entirety of the Mistborn trilogy, and now he's read the original Mistborn trilogy, and now he's read the entirety of Stormlight, and he has started reading Warbreaker, gasp, after all of Stormlight. And eventually he's probably going to read Mistborn Era 2, but he's reading other stuff right now. So right here we have 3 totally different reading orders. And I'm here to tell you, it hasn't affected people's enjoyment or understanding of the Cosmere, basically in any way. Basically, let's just talk about what things are revealed, what connections are revealed, when and where, and why it's totally okay if you don't immediately know what something is being referenced at, at all moments. Generally, the argument that I see is that people say that you have to read an order of when certain concepts are introduced so that when they're referenced or brought in later, you'll understand what's going on. But I'm here to tell you it's totally okay if certain people don't understand a reference immediately. So let me bring my third friend up, for example, the one who read the original Mistborn trilogy and then read all of Stormlight and then read Warbreaker. I've seen everybody online say, but what about, but Words of, you have to read it before Words of Radiance, because at the end of Words of Radiance, Nightblood comes in, and Vasher is a character throughout all of Words of Radiance. And then in Oathbringer, what's her name? Oh, from Warbreaker. You know who I'm talking about. There's Lightsong, and then there's Ciri, and there's Vivenna. Vivenna is in Oathbringer, and so you've gotta read it. No, you don't. If you read Oathbringer and Words of Radiance without reading Warbreaker, here's what's gonna happen. These new characters are gonna come up, and you're gonna be like, those characters are really interesting and really weird. I want to know more about those people. oh, this sword is really cool. I want to know more about that sword. You get to the end of Stormlight, and then you'll go and you'll read Warbreaker. And when you encounter Nightblood and Vasher and Vivenna, and you get to the end of that book, you'll make the connection. Oh, that's so cool. Those characters that I just read in Stormlight, they were these characters all along. What a cool contextualization. My point here is that not that you have to read Warbreaker after, or that you have to read Warbreaker before Words of Radiance. My point is that whether you read it before or whether you read it after, the only thing that changes is at what moment you make those connections. I think you can make those connections at any time and it'll be fine. Like when I first read through the Cosmere, there were things that I didn't realize that were connections until well into my reading of Mistborn Era 2. My other friend who read Mistborn Era 2 first, he made certain connections sooner and got to understand certain parts of Stormlight faster than I did. The moment the Ghostbloods popped up at the end of Way of Kings, my friend goes, whoa, that's a connection to Mistborn. And now he got to enjoy Stormlight in a totally new light. It wasn't a spoiler for him. It was just an alternate way to experience the story. And he really enjoyed that experience. There's no moment where you need to know these connections or these concepts in a certain order to get it. Because what you'll notice, and this is what I noticed especially when I reread the series, is you will always know enough about what's going on to understand the story at hand. Really, the impetus is not on the connections to carry the story. The story is carrying the story, and there are some connections that are there if you know they exist. All right, so the prime examples that I'm thinking of are specifically the Lost Metal, right? A lot of people like to complain about the Lost Metal because, well, now that the Lost Metal has so many Cosmere connections, you have to read all these other books before you read the Lost Metal. No, you don't. You can read the Lost Metal and you'll get to the Ghostblood section, right? Because this is where all the connections are, by the way, is the Ghostblood section. When you read the Ghostbloods, what are you told in the Lost Metal? You're told that the Ghostbloods are an organization that can hop around the galaxy to different worlds, and that they have brought magics and other things from those worlds onto Scadrial. Everything you see in the Lost Metal, even though you don't know exactly what it is, you go, oh, that's some magic from another world that I don't know about. That's really cool and really interesting. And guess what? For the Lost Metal, that is all you need to know. That is all you need to know. If Lost Metal was a standalone, people would be like, wow, that's so cool. There must be some larger world here. What are all these magics and things? This is really interesting and fascinating. The problem is there's like this psychological effect that because it is connected to other books, people think that, oh, well, then that means you have to read those other books first. You don't have to, because you understand enough to follow the story at hand, and then you can get those connections later. If you get those connections before, the Lost Metal is really cool because you're like, oh, that's cool. That's the Elantrian magic. Wow, that's cool. If you read Elantris after, the first time you read the Lost Metal, you're just thinking, oh, wow, that's cool. There's some other world out there with a new magic thing going on. Man, that'd be cool if I could read about that at some point. Do you see what I mean? Right? Each book always explains exactly what you need to know. And I know because there's connections, a lot of people assume that, oh, well, now because this is a thing referencing this thing, I have to read the first thing. And you really just don't. Even if you know about the Cosmere, you'll probably encounter these things and go, oh, that's probably some Cosmere thing that I don't understand yet, but I'll probably understand it at some point. That's cool. I at least know enough about this Ghostblood organization to understand the finale of the Lost Metal. And that's why I don't understand the hate about the Lost Metal, that it's too connected and that it's too, now it makes the whole Cosmere too messy, because I just don't believe it. Sando does a fine job of letting you know exactly what's going on, so that if you understand the connection, you have a fun little Easter egg. And if you don't understand the connection, you'll be excited about what more is to come. Those are like the big ones, right? Like Lost Metal and the Rhythm of War and Wind and Truth connection to Stormlight. I'm here to tell you that my friend who has only read Mistborn and only read Stormlight, he's been fine. He loved Stormlight. And all these people will say, oh, you can't read Wind and Truth without these connections. Not true. My friend totally enjoyed Wind and Truth without having to know that the characters, from Warbreaker are in there in Wind and Truth. My friend enjoyed Wind and Truth without knowing that the Ghostbloods are even, he doesn't even know the Ghostbloods are even part of Mistborn at all. He's been kept hidden from that. It's going to blow his mind when he gets into Mistborn Era 2 and the Ghostbloods are going to be revealed. He hasn't even read Secret History, so he doesn't even know that Kelsier is still alive and that he's the leader of the Ghostbloods. That's going to blow his mind and make him want to reread the Stormlight archive. I hope I've made this point clear, and I hope this hasn't been too rambly, but all that to say, right, if you have read the Cosmere, you don't have to force a reading order down anybody's throats, because let's be honest, the reading order that most people suggest to other people is probably just the reading order that they read in, and they want other people to have the exact same experience that they had. But the cool thing is that you can experience the Cosmere in any order that you want, and it will not make it worse. It will just make your experience with it different. And there's no wrong place in the series to start making connections and contextualizations. But that's what's fun about the Cosmere. What's fun about it is seeing when people start connecting the dots, is seeing when people start to realize what's connected and what's not. That's what's fun about it. And we can all do that in a different way. Now, yes, you obviously can't start the Cosmere with Oathbringer. I know some people is going to comment that, even though I've specifically said you have to start at the beginning of a series. Whether you start at Stormlight, or whether you start with Tress of the Emerald Sea, or whether you start with Elantris, or whether you start with the Alloy of Law, those are all fine starting places. It doesn't matter. And let's be honest, okay? This is the thing that gets me the most. If there's something that somebody doesn't understand immediately, that's okay. They will not know that they're not understanding something. That's what gets me, right? Is that like most times these Cosmere connections, you won't know they're Cosmere connections until you eventually find the connection. And so what's really fascinating about this, all these people complaining that, no, you won't understand Nightblood unless you read Warbreaker. It's just not true, man. Even if somebody doesn't understand Nightblood, they will eventually. And that's okay. Like, they don't have to understand Nightblood before it shows up in Words of Radiance. You know what I mean? So no, I do not think Cosmere reading orders matter. I think you can read in whatever order you want, and you will have a good time, and it will generate good discussion. But of course, all that being said, obviously the only best reading order is my best reading order, okay? And so you have to read it exactly the way I read it. Otherwise, you're not doing the Cosmere correctly.